Hello my gorgeous loves out there and welcome. In today's video, I am going to share about some of my favorite nudie palettes. Some are nudie palettes with a pop, like a few colors here and there. I'm not a true nudie lover, so most of my collection is quite colorful, but these are the palettes I go to if I want a more nudie toned down kind of look. But before we get into this video, if you are new here, hello, welcome. My name is Bri. I am just a crazy lover of all things beauty. I like to post a lot of fun, colorful makeup content. I like to do a lot on indie makeup, so if that is what you're into, then please hit that subscribe button and join this little family. But with that being said, let's get into this video. I was going through my content that I've come out with and trying to figure out what I wanted to film next, and I realized that I haven't filmed a favorite nudie palette video in a long time. The last time I did one was 3 years ago. Now I feel like maybe there's one palette or two palettes that are still in my favorites category for nudie palettes from that video. Not totally sure, I might be wrong. Now I have like 12 here. 2 are honorable mentions because I haven't really used them on the eyes, but I've swatched them and I already love these brands, so I figured I'd include them since they are new nudie palettes to my collection. Now before we get into everything, I did film this look. It is a little bit more nudie with like a pop of blue, and then I added some details, but it's with the Cleona Paleo palette, and I also used the new fruit highlighters from them in Juicy. I have a whole video using all 3 of the new Cleona palettes. That video is probably going to be up before this one, so I'll link it below. I'll put it up in the corner if you want to see how I put this together. But I think we should now get into these nudie palettes. This is not an area which is my forte, because if you've been watching me, you know I love me color, and it's very rare that I will go to a more nudie look, but every now and then I do, like date night, you know, when I'm just feeling more nudie glam. But most of my collection consists of a lot of color, so it wasn't that hard for me to pick my favorite nudie ones, since I don't have that many in my collection. So let's get into it, because I feel like I'm rambling. So the first one I want to mention, by the way, none of this is in a particular order. It's not a ranking. I'm just showing you all the ones that I love. I will include swatches too. But now let's get into the palette. So I have the Nabla Dreamy 2 palette, the Mystic palette. I don't think they sell this one anymore, but it is a beautiful little smoky palette. Now it does have some like purple tones in it. Hopefully my camera will focus, but it's really beautiful. It's a little bit more smoky. I've used this many times for like date nights when I want like a sultry look. I'm gonna go out with some friends on the town, or my husband is taking me out to dinner. I've reached for this palette quite often. If I'm gonna use nudie tones, I tend to go on the smoky end or the cool tone end, but this one's a little bit more warm with some pops of like kind of muted purples, but it's mainly a nudie color story. I really do like Nabla. I just don't know what's been going on with them. I feel like they're kind of sleeping over there. I think they've come out with some lip products and like random things here and there, but where are their eyeshadow palettes? Come on, give us something interesting. And then I have this one right here. This is the Tiny Marvels palette from Cindy Grace. This was with Mel Thompson. Rest in peace, Mel. But I had to mention this because I still adore this palette. Now it is messed up because the Scarab shade broke because I'm clumsy and I dropped it, and it's kind of all over the inside. Please ignore that. I need to clean it up. I probably should have cleaned it up before this video, but this is real life, okay? This is how I am. But this one has some pops of color, like with the purple, the green, and some pink in here. But overall, to me, this is a more nudie palette with some pops of color, and the pops of colors are more on the muted end. But I love this one. I've used this a lot. I wore this at my sister's wedding when I wanted to just do something neutral, and then I did like a pop of green in the inner corner. That's my go-to, is something like toned down on the lid and then a fun color in the inner corner or on the lower lash line, but I still adore this. It's still really good. Cindy Grace has a really nice matte formula, and they have nice smooth shimmers. They're not like those super sparkly, flaky, shifty ones, but they're smooth, creamy. They just glide right on. They don't really enhance texture on the lids. So if that's your kind of metallic formula, you would also really love Cindy Grace. And this is just a beautiful palette, and I will cherish it forever. I don't think I'll ever declutter that. Then I have like a little mini one, which I think I mentioned in that video from 3 years ago. It is the Nabla Cutie palette, the platinum one. It has 6 shades, but somehow this still has a hold on my heart. This silver in here, Luxuriance, is still my favorite silver metallic in my collection of all time. Like, I love this one. There's one in one of the Lethal palettes. It's really good, but this one, I don't know, I can't get over it. And I am able to do like a smoky chocolate look that's more cool tone leaning, which smoky cool tone makes me so happy to have that combo. And you can see it, right? It is like so intense and still creamy. And I've had this palette for a while, and you can still pick this one up if you want like a go-to little cool tone smoky brown palette with an intense metallic silver. This is a really, really good one. That's why I wish Nabla would start coming back out with eyeshadow palettes, because when they do a good palette, they do it real good. Like, look at that. Then I have this one from Glaminatrix. This is probably one of my most favorite Nudie palettes. It's the Nearly Natural Palette. This one is totally up my alley. It has mostly nude tones, but then there's some muted colors in here, like some muted olive. In here, a little bit of mauviness. It leans, I would say, more cool tone. There are some warm tone shimmers in here, but the quality from, I can't even speak, the quality from Glaminatrix is amazing. Some of the best mattes I've ever tried. And then they have all these beautiful metallic formulas. Some are really creamy, some are extra sparkly. They also do multi-chromes and shifty shades as well. They're definitely on the pricier end, and if you're not in Australia, you know, costs to get international shipping, but I think it's totally worth it. And then I have the Blend Bunny Cosmetics, the Dollhouse palette. This is probably my number one. If I was going to rank these palettes, this would probably be number one, and I've mentioned it many times. It's a tried and true palette. This one does have muted colors in here too, but I have used this so much. I have traveled with this. I've used it in conjunction with the other Blend Bunny palettes, or with more colorful palettes that I want to pull in some more nudie shades. I will reach for this one probably out of all of them, because it has everything you possibly need, as well as some color. I mean, there is some muted purples in here, some muted olives. But overall, for me, this is a nudie palette. If you're a true like nude, like toned down person, this is probably not nudie enough for you. But because I'm a color lover, this is what I call a neutral toned down palette. Hopefully that is making sense to you guys. But I mean, Blend Bunny is a tried and true brand. They always, you know, give you everything you need within a palette. Depth, mid-tones, light shades, inner corner highlights. They're just so good. Now going on to another Nabla palette. This is a side-by-side nude palette. I mean, nude is in the name. You can still pick this one up. I looked on their site. They still sell this one. I think you can still get the Dollhouse one, and I'm not sure about the Glaminatrix one, because they tend to like cycle out palettes quite often on their site. But look at this. This is probably my like truest, nudiest palette in my collection. I mean, I don't think anything is really color in here, but I love that this gives you cool tones and warm tones. And like, I have all my options I need for a glam nudie look. I love it. I have everything. I have midtones, I have depth, I have beautiful shimmers. If I want to get extra intensely sparkly or make my look more interesting, I can always pull like a multi-chrome or a more interesting shifty shade from another palette, or my like Cleona singles. But I think the formula is really good from Nabla. They have good mattes, blendable, easy to work with. They've always had nice like smooth shimmers. They're not like extra special shimmers, but they work. They're smooth, they glide on, they're creamy, they work. So come on, Nabla, give us some palettes again, and give us some colorful palettes. But I think their market is more for people who like nudie makeup. And I think overall, more neutral, toned down makeup is what sells more than anything. There's not like a lot of people that are just crazy color lovers like me. I mean, you see them on social media and YouTube accounts, but in like real life, I think most people go for a more chill makeup look. Not everyone is going out looking like a peacock like me. Then I also have this from Adept Cosmetics, the Flying Fiddles palette. I believe this is their version of a nudie kind of palette, but it does have a little bit of pops of green, but it's smoky, it's saturated. It has these beautiful foiled, high sparkle, intense shimmers. That's what I love from Adept the most. But I do think the mattes were really nice in here, and surprisingly, I've used this quite a bit. I did use this for date night. I did use this on our wedding day when we got married, like when we did the ceremony in the courthouse, or when we went out that night. I think I used this palette because it's just so smoky and pretty. And like I said, if I want some more interesting sparkles, I could always go into this palette and then use it with the side by side palette from Nabla, because they just have the best foiled, creamy, sparkly shades ever. And I think the mattes they paired with it was really pretty. This is a nice new palette with a pop. And Adept Cosmetics did it so well. And then the packaging is just so beautiful and romantic, but on the darker side with the like black lace. A huge fan. And then I also have this one for the Chocolate Martini Palette. I don't think they sell this one anymore, but this is such a good palette. It does have some like purple in it, like a little bit of purple, like slightly mauvey tones, but overall it's more of a chocolatey color story. But you have everything you could need in here. I feel like there's like some cool tones, some warm tones, these beautiful metallics. They are very sparkly. And Glamlite has a very creamy metallic formula, and I've always loved it. Like, they usually glide on really well. Like this beautiful vanilla vodka has like a goldy shift. It's like an iridescent with a gold shift. It makes a beautiful inner corner highlight. Also a beautiful highlighter too. And I thought like the mattes are really good. I mean, I think Glamlite is a really good brand too with their formula. They're more of a quirky brand that does a lot of like fun, interesting themes and like nostalgic stuff, and food stuff. But I don't mind the themes. They have good shadows. They're fun. They make me feel like a kid again when I play with their makeup, but it's like adult quality makeup, not like, you know, toy makeup quality, but you get to still feel like a kid. Am I the only one who still wants to be a kid? And then I have this from Natasha, the Metropolis palette. I was gonna say something else, but this one does have like some pops of like greeny teal shades in here, but there's a lot of shades and most of them are nudie, and on the warm tone side there's a little bit of olive. But this is probably one of my most used palettes in my collection. I've gone through this so much. You can see it's well used. The like cream to powder formula is still creamy in here. The regular mattes are also still creamy, pigmented. I don't necessarily think the shimmers are that exciting. They lean a little bit more satin, more traditional metallics, but I really go into this one for the mattes. I'll use like maybe some of the metallics on the outer corner or through the crease, because they're like shades that you could use more like that, because I feel like satiny shades can be manipulated like mattes can be. And then I will pair it with some more interesting shimmers, like from the Adept palettes, my all shimmer palettes, my singles from Cleona and Divina, and pair it. But I just really love the mattes. I don't know, this palette has a hold on me. I'll never let this palette go, and I've traveled with it a lot. I've used it a lot. There are some that have dips in here, and for this to be mostly neutral leaning nudie warm shades, it's surprising that I've used it so much. Like, I honestly don't really pull in the teals that often. I may use the olives, but I rarely use these more bluish tones. It's always these warmer shades and grungy shades that I'm pulling for in this palette. Also a really good one for fall. I'm sure I've mentioned that one quite a bit on my channel. And then the last one, before I do my honorable mention palettes, is the Red Dragon palette from Uden. This was a collab with Judy. This was from their first round of collabs that they did with Judy, Annette, and Tina from the Fancy Face. But this one is nudie, a little grunge. There's a fun little bright pop of red here, and it's a very vibrant red. But overall, she is a nudie lover, so her color story was more nudie, but with a fall twist to it. You do have a little fun olive moment here, but this is excellent. I mean, Uden's Eye has some of my most favorite eyeshadow formula ever. Like, I love their mattes. I love their sparkly metallics that they have. I love the color stories that they do, and Judy just nailed it with making a fall nude palette of my dreams, and then included a fun little green, a fun little pop of red, and it's still really good, one that I pull for a lot, and I've really loved how my looks have come out with this one. I usually reach for this one if I'm in the grungy nude mood. This is a good go-to for that. I feel like it's maybe like more of a scaled down version of the Metropolis palette from Natasha Denona, but the shimmers are definitely way more impactful in this one, and it's a little bit more curated and scaled down. And now getting into the honorable mention ones that I don't want to say are favorites yet, because I still need to test these out and actually use them on my eyes. I've just swatched them and done or like prepared reels for them, or in the process of making reels with them. But I have the Cosmic Brushes Neutrals palette. I mean, Neutrals is the name, so you know this is going to be nudie leaning. But Cosmic Brushes always gives you some color, whether it be muted or not, because there's like a kind of muted cool tone green in here. And a little bit of like purple muted tones down here in the metallics. But overall, it's very nude leaning. There's some mustardy goodness in here too. So this is like a fall nudie version kind of palette, like how the Red Dragon one is. And the formula seems comparable to their other palettes. I just haven't actually created looks with this yet. I've only swatched it and did comparisons in a video. If you want to see that one, I'll link it below, put it up in the corner. But I can tell it's the usual good formula. I just didn't want to label it as a favorite without having to actually use it on my eyes and create looks. But I mean, I had to mention it. I mean, this is a newer palette that they recently released, and it would feel weird not to include that in this video. And then I have one more from Glaminatrix Cosmetics. This is their Barely Basic palette. I wonder if this is replacing their Nearly Natural palette. I don't know, but this one is more grungy leaning as well. Now this one I've also done swatches for a reel, but I haven't actually used it yet, and I'm sure by the time you're seeing this, this will already be included in like a haul comparison video, but I have to mention it. It is on the grungy side, just like the last two that I mentioned. It has some olives included, a little bit of like kind of plummy shades, but to me, it's more basic nudie shades. If you kind of covered the green here and then covered maybe these, it's more of a nude palette with some cool tones, some warm tones, and then these intense shifty metallics. You have these shifty iridescent shades that would make beautiful inner corner highlights, shades to brighten the lids. You could probably even pull them off on the cheeks as well if you want a shifty highlighter moment. And then these ones that have a little bit more color to them, but they're also stunning and sparkly. It's so foiled, like foiled, intense, sparkly metallics paired with these beautiful mattes. And the mattes are just so beautifully pigmented. Like one swipe into the pan, you have full color payoff with them, but they're also blendable and buttery. Like they're not so pigmented that you stick it on the eye and you can't get it to blend out. It's such a user-friendly matte formula paired with intense, beautiful, sparkly metallic. So I had to mention this one as well. This is also their newest palette, and it's meant to be a more basic color story with it being barely basic. I mean, I guess they're saying barely because there is still some muted color in here. So yet again, my kind of nudie color story. So that was the other honorable mention palette. I have to use this on my eyes, but I'm sure by the time you see this video, I will have probably used it on my eyes already. But that was everything for this video. It's been so long since I've talked about this kind of like color story and favorites in palettes, because normally it's like colorful summer palettes, colorful spring palettes, fun, intense, grungy fall color stories that tend to be on the more colorful side, not muted side. But hopefully you guys found this video interesting and helpful, because maybe you might be a nudie lover, or maybe you're trying to find some nudie palettes to add to your collection because you're like me and have a lot of color and you need a good nudie palette. Maybe that's the case as well. But you guys will now have to let me know, what are your thoughts in the comments below? Do you have any of these palettes? Do you love them? Do you hate them? Do you have a different favorite nudie palette? I would love to hear from all of y'all. And if you're new here and you enjoy this video, you like a lot of fun, colorful makeup content, you like a lot on indie makeup and all that good stuff, then please hit that subscribe button and join this little family. I would love to have you here. Also, don't forget to check out the description below. I will have all the palettes linked that are still available. I will have any videos that I have done with any of these palettes. If you want to see them in action, looks that I have done, that will be included, as well as the makeup that I'm wearing. And the video of me putting this makeup look together with the Paleo palette will be linked, as well as like foundation and all that, in case you're curious. And I will have my contact and my social media platforms linked. I'm also on Instagram as Breezy Lifestyle and Breezy_Beauty. So if you want to join my Instagram fam, I would really, really love that. But guys, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, for being here, being amazing, being just so supportive. I love you guys all so much, and I just hope all of you are doing well wherever you are in the world, and just sending you guys so much light and love. But until next time, bye guys.